Welcome, five. Today, Young is going to give us a walkthrough of the economic state of the country that will touch on areas like corruption, and he's also going to give us the political landscape prior to 2026. And if we have time, probably could touch a little bit about the constitution and especially the second Monday, I mean the second term issue that President Barrow is trying to uh, bypass. So, Nyang, you are welcome to our show. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have
Thank you
my
so much, sir.
co-host here.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. I have my co-host Sam Ceesay, Sam from Indiana, United States. Sam,
Yep.
welcome.
Thank you, and Yang, welcome.
Famara, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Famara and then Ousman will probably join us during the show. So, Nyang, just to give us walkthrough about the economic states of the country, and of
Well,
course, the corruption issues that is haunting the administration of President Barrow. Yeah.
well, thank you so much. For me, Gambia is still going under the post-COVID recovery. The economy hasn't fully recovered from the COVID impact for the simple reason that the Gambian economy is highly vulnerable to external shocks, considering the fact that most of what we eat is imported. Equally, we rely heavily on tourism, and we know that Western European countries are also trying to get out of the COVID shock that they've been, but it has impacted the Gambia more so than most countries because the vulnerability of the economy. But notwithstanding, the Gambian economy has relatively been going through some issues, and I see these issues as structural issues as it relates to governance. Corruption, for example, we are yet to tackle the issue of corruption seriously as a nation, and the government has been tried, tested, and it has failed significantly, over the period because we have all kinds of commissions, all kinds of audit reports that are yet to be fully prosecuted or at least addressed. So the Gambian economy, as I see it, it's in a crisis of confidence, and this crisis of confidence is also begging for leadership. And confidence is the currency that drives any economy. And right now, I don't think most practitioners or people participating in the economy at a large scale, i.e., foreign investors, are happy with the economic environment because the visibility is very blurred, and a lot of people don't know whether it's the right time to put their monies medium to long term in the Gambian economy. Equally, we have relied heavily on taxation, and this has created a problem because the economy is heavily taxed, and as I see it, there's a tax burden. The tax burden is the few companies that are paying tax bears the shoulder of responsibility of bulk of our taxes. And this creates a tax fatigue. And the tax fatigue is forcing people to go to the informal sector, thereby escaping the tax net. And rationally, it would have been ideal if the government decided that they will lower the tax rates and broaden the tax net, thereby having a lot of people. And that will create less of tax avoidance and evasion. Right now, that we have a lot of incentives as economic participants in the economy to avoid taxes or evade taxes.
Thank you. And you mentioned the tax invasion. Gambia taxes alone could make the country more prosperous. We've seen that happen in Kenya and other places. Oftentimes we complain that Gambia doesn't have mineral resources. We don't have, oil. We don't have uh, oil. We don't have other minerals. Do you think that taxes alone could be a good source of income for the Gambia if the taxes are collected the way they're supposed to and they are put into good use?
Well, I'm yet to see a country that has taxed them their way to prosperity or borrowed all the way to prosperity. The Gambia needs to work on its productive sector, reduce our tax rate, and also create user fee and non-tax revenue. We need to develop that aspect of it. If you look at the Gambia, real estate is booming, but unfortunately, we are not making, the government is not making much money on real estate transactions. Why? Because one, the real estate market is not digitized, whereby the government will be aware of transactions. So when people are doing change of ownership and all of these, they will pay the requisite fees and taxes. But more so, we need to develop what we call user fees. And in user fees, we can get a lot of non-tax revenue. And this non-tax revenue will offset the rate that we're trying to bring down. Then the Gambian economy will not be overburdened. As I speak to you right now, the Gambian economy is overburdened with taxation. And what this does, it takes away additional income that companies could have used to do more capital expenditure or reinvestment in the sector. So sooner the government of the Gambia realizes that taxes are good, but there is a point, then once you reach that point, it's no longer elastic. And that's when you start squeezing water from stone. And basically, that's what the government of the Gambia is currently doing. It's an overtaxed economy, an economy that is overburdened with taxes. And the only way out, as I see it, is to rationalize government expenditure, work on our fiscal program, ensure that the fiscal budget of the country matches our earning capacity. But right now, our expenditure pattern outweighs our productive input. And for me, that is a recipe for disaster. And structurally, medium to long term, the Gambian economy is not aligned with the macro fundamentals of what this economy is doing. So I am seeing doom and gloom in the next coming years.
Very good. Before I let Sam comment to that, uh, there are things that I observed when you look at Gambian economy, like when you talk about salary scales and that the cost of living are not matched for many families. So that actually caused many people to become corrupt or mismanage public funds. So the fact of the matter here is that how can we make a balance economically between what people are earning and the cost of living? Where do we need to tap in to really bring that balance? Because that is the root cause of most of these corruptions.
Well, you're right. The economy is not stupid, and the economy punishes us for implementing bad public policy. Basically, in 2017, when this government came in, the first thing they should have done was a comprehensive civil service reform. In a comprehensive civil service reform, the first agenda would have been the civil service itself, the people in the civil service. And right now, it would have been prudent because what the civil service need are people, the technical staff. That's what we need. The auxiliary staff, we don't need them. What do I mean by we don't need them? We don't need cleaners. We don't need drivers. We don't need courier people. What do I mean by we don't need them? We don't need them to be on government payroll. We need to give those services to the private sector and ensure that the private sector provides services for the government and we pay them. You're taking people off of your pension scheme. You're taking people off of your payroll, and they will be paying income tax to the state. Then the savings you make, you now pay more to the technical staff that will be doing the service delivery for the people of the Gambia. Because what is a cleaner, a messenger adding to the delivery of a passport, to the delivery of a driver's license, to the delivery of any other document you need, or even at the hospital? So if we rationalize the civil service, we will do two things. We will give them a security of tenure, and we will not pay them exactly like the private sector, but we will pay them comparable salaries because they're getting other benefits such as training. And this will compensate for the gap that will be there between the civil service and the private sector. But I think that needs someone with a vision, and that needs someone who is interested in building a country. The building blocks of any society is the civil service. And as it is right now, the culture of the civil service is wayward. As it is right now, the competence and capacity levels of the civil service is at its lowest, if you ask me. And the morale of the civil service, once again, is also at an all-time low. Why? Because the environment is not conducive for growth. The environment is not conducive in terms of remuneration. So we need to go back to the drawing board and understand the greatest asset of getting any government off the ground and going is the civil servant.
Thank you, thank you. Just one more, just a follow up. If where would the money come from if you want to adjust civil service pay to match the economy or to match the cost of living? Where do you think the funding has to come from?
Well, it's not a difficult task when you rationalize, because if you do a head count, when you're running a government, you need to look at your head count and also make sure that you don't have what you call excess dead weight. As I speak to you, there's excess dead weight in the system for the simple fact that government over the past 45, 50 years has been seen as the primary employer. And politicians have abused that significantly by bringing in people who are not needed, and yet still they're on the payroll. We also have what you call ghost workers. So if you rationalize the civil service, streamline, and actually I wouldn't even call it streamlined. I mean, a lot of people will tell you streamline the civil service. I would say right size the civil service, make each function in the civil service be something that the civil service needs. Then you will make savings. And when you make these savings, you redistribute that savings to the people who are staying within the civil service. But it will not only be money, it will be money plus other perks. And these perks include training and further education. And I think this is what's lacking, because the government should look at the civil service as the engine of public service delivery. And once they look at it as the engine of public service delivery, I think the way and manner in which they handle things will change. You look at today, you have a presidential advisor who is really taking the space of what the Secretary General used to be. That shows you that this government doesn't understand public administration, and it doesn't put emphasis on public administration, because the Secretary General should be the interface between the president and the government, because the government is just a support arm. Well, not the government, the public service is a support arm of running the state, be it at the legislature, be it at the judiciary, be it at the executive. So these people are needed to let government move. But today you have the role of the Secretary General kind of minimized, and that's to show that they really don't understand what public administration is all about.
Thank you. Sam, when it comes to the economy, what do you want to ask questions and we'll make
Well,
comments?
yeah, well, Nyang is the expert in this. He is the subject matter expert in this. In fact, there was a time when I read some of his articles and watched some of his videos. I was saying to myself that if I were the president of the Gambia today, I would make Nyang Njie, if he allows, I will appoint him to be my Minister of Finance and Trade. I will combine finance and trade and put him in there and make him that minister, because he's very talented. He knows a lot, very experienced, and we need to utilize his knowledge, So on that side, I mean, he's dead on. What he said um, is absolutely true. Is the right thing. And the other thing that I was going to say is when he started talking about comprehensive civil service reform, I think Mr. Sawaneh, you've heard me talk about that as well. I actually made a proposal for comprehensive civil service reform because I think is a key fundamental pillar in fighting corruption. Because the government, just like Nyang said, this government is really I'm trying to think of a word to use here to describe because they are not well aligned at all. They are not aligned, and they don't know administration. They are connections are going in and out for some reason. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good, good. So it's Mr. Sawaneh that's going in and out. So we are still live. But, I have a WhatsApp group called Solutions for Gambia. And this is a group that I formed or I founded since 2018. And what we do there is talk about finding solutions for Gambia's problems. And one of those was one of the biggest thing in there is corruption in the Gambia. And I mentioned five key ingredients in stopping corruption. And inside those ingredients, or among those ingredients, is public service reform and financial management system. Reform the public service administration and financial management system. This is very, very important to any government. And just like Nyang said, and in reforming the public service, that's where my comprehensive civil service reform come into play. I gave detailed explanation and gave recommendations as to what to do, and even said there's a universal platform called Workday. Workday could be used to by any government official, any government employee, regardless of your location. They can all use Workday as a platform to be able to help them do a lot of things. And because I see a lot of deficiencies in the government. And just like Nyang said, I actually pointed to the Secretary General, the Secretary of State, Secretary General, in other words, some of the things that need to happen that are not happening, and the powers and the things that he needs to be able to do are not able to do. So there's quite a bit of stuff that we talked about on that. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, is key ingredients in stopping corruption, which includes all of that, and performing what is it called? Not performing, but reforming the public administration and civil service reform, and all of that could really have an impact on our country. Promoting the what is it called? Transparency. I talk quite a bit about corruption, promoting transparency, and also empowering the citizens to hold the government accountable. And last but not the least, I also talked about what is called. Talked about ending impunity. We need to end impunity. That the government really need to work on that. Impunity. I mean, there's been a lot of audit reports that came out with a lot of discrepancies and a lot of millions of funds missing, misappropriation of our funds. And up to now, I have not seen anybody that's been arrested, prosecuted, and put in prison other than Banja. Banja, by default, because of the indisputable evidence, video evidence that happened, that caused him to go to jail. But without him, who else? Who else went? So the impunity need to really stop in our country for us to fight.
And he has been pardoned.
Oh, really? He's already been pardoned. Okay, I see. So these are not the right way.
It's almost about 9 months ago.
Oh my! I did not.
So,
I didn't pay attention
to tell you, wow. I mean, the government is not serious. But see, the biggest problem is, I think President Barrow doesn't understand that he was elected on a disruptive agenda. We wanted to disrupt the status quo, and the status quo goes beyond the extrajudicial killings and everything else. It's the business as usual. So he needed to run a disruptive agenda, and he was running a growth and expansionary agenda rather than a disruptive agenda. And that's why, for me, honestly, I can't see myself working for him, because I am a disruptor, and currently Gambia needs disruption. The public infrastructure architecture needs to be disrupted. And I don't think that's what he wants. He wants a growth and expansion agenda. And the growth and expansion agenda cannot be underpinned with the current system we have, because the current system we have has already failed. So we need to disrupt before we grow.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, and I don't blame you if you say, and I know there are a few people that would say, no, I wouldn't want to go work there because of all the things that you mentioned. So we really need a change. We need change, and our country is really, like I always say, we are way behind time. Way behind time. Part of the reason for that is because of the corruption that's holding us behind, and the lack of knowledge in running a country, is all part of the problem, and putting the wrong people in the wrong places. Putting people in. I'm trying to think of a word here, but people are not employed or appointed in the right positions of their area of expertise. So that makes it very difficult for anybody. I mean, you can't. I said this in my audios like probably a few years ago, and I repeated it last week. I was talking on some WhatsApp audios that I released. I said the same thing. You can't hire someone that studied agriculture to go run your another different department, that is and vice versa. Someone that studied medicine and you put him in agriculture, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because that's not their area of expertise. They are going to struggle, and that struggle is what continues in our government right now.
Very good, very
Yeah,
good.
I mean, there's a famous management guru, and he has what you call the Peter principle. You cannot promote people beyond their capacities or competence.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
in the
That's it.
Gambia today, the biggest problem is, forget about the intellectual dishonesty, because if I give you a job and you know this is beyond your pay grade and scope,
Yep.
I think you should be honorable enough to say no. But unfortunately, Gambia is a country that encourages mediocrity. So
Yeah.
if you look at the government, it's a reflection of how the people want to live. We're satisfied with just the way things are going.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they just believe passion should drive your quest to do an assignment. Passion alone
Mhm.
is not enough. You can be
Nope.
passionate, but you need the requisite skill set and toolkit to do the job at hand.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Very
Absolutely
good,
right.
very good.
So, Mr. Sawaneh, yeah, he's
Yeah,
absolutely right, and that's
yeah,
that little thing I wanted to add to it, because when he mentioned the comprehensive civil service reform, and I knew I wrote a proposal about that, and I've been talking about that for the past years. It's sad that see things like that, because that's going to put us in the right direction. So, but
yeah.
unfortunately, we are continuing to struggle because of lack of doing all of those things.
Yeah, and we will continue to struggle for lack of ever many, many, many things. Now, let's
Okay.
come to the political landscape prior to 2026. We have seen a lot of things happening currently. Barrow has come to the end of this second term, which was not even foreseen, which wasn't even thought of, because he was like Young said, he was a disruptor. He was put in power to create these institutional changes that will bring us better democracy, better governance, and so forth. But now what Barrow is doing is completely opposite. He's trying to build some developmental agenda, trying to play some politics to stay longer and longer. And Gambians have one opportunity now to tell President Barrow, this is it. That's it. 2 term is the perfect thing that Gambian people wanted, even from 2000 constitution. The populace had spoken that time. This is enough. Enough is enough. So now that we have all at stake, we see political players like Insafal involved in land issue that he couldn't even get himself out of. Now we're seeing UDP in a saga of political struggle. Dabo, Talib, and you have Yankuba Rohimali Klo. I mean, they couldn't get the house together until Dabo has to come in and say he's going to run again for how many times? I'm not sure. Now, what is the chances? So, what are the chances to put a stop to Barrow's second term and teach him a lesson. So this is
Well,
the
the Gambia needs, as a country, we need political convergence. One, Barrow is currently having the advantage of incumbency on his side. Two, we know that, our electoral referee, traditionally, we can still point fingers to how they manage and execute the process. Third, we know that the Ministry of Interior, by the way of our ID cards, birth certificates, and the way attestations are being used, all this can skew the electoral results. So, being the opposition as it is, they need to have a convergence. I think their egos should be set aside, their ambitions should be set aside, and say that we're in a state where we need to salvage what's left of this enterprise called the Gambia to get it back on the right track and right footing. So, what I will want to see is not a consolidation, nor an amalgamation, but a consensus and compromise building within the political class to know that getting Barrow out of here needs a concerted collective effort with one aim and objective, and that is to ensure the end of his regime.
now how is that how is that gonna play out if you have UDP having political struggle now, and then the issue of Dabo saying that he would considering contesting 2026. If that becomes the case, how likely is the coalition to take place, and how likely would Dabo win against Barrow after being defeated 2021? What are
Well,
the chances?
it's an uphill task. The reason why I said it's an uphill task, um, as we speak right now, there is no united front within the opposition. And we know that even if Barrow can poll 35, 40%, the other 60% will be scattered
Right.
based on the participants who are out there. So mathematically, if we want to do anything right, there has to be consensus building and compromise. You have the independent Gambian voter who is non-partisan. And the bickering that's going on within the opposition is also turning them off. So some people would have loved to just say, let me vote for X or Y candidate because they have the greatest chance to uproot this system, even though I am not a member or nor do I believe in their political philosophy. But the main objective of wanting change, they're the only group that I can see will bring change. But it's dying down because there's a lot of frustration amongst independent, non-partisan voters who are just looking at what's happening within the political landscape. But I am of the view that Gambia happens to have what I call the urgency of now. And the urgency of now will let the political class really do the right thing or be remembered wrongly in the history, consider the times that the country is living and the situation that we're in right now.
All right, Sam, do you have something to add to that, or something to ask about what are the state, the political landscapes prior to
No, I
2026?
totally agree with him. Convergence is very, very, very important. I said this on my audios as well. I think it's very important for all political parties, especially their leadership, to really sit down and think about our country, and forget about their individual goals. To think about what is the best thing for our country, and the best thing for our country is for us to be able to change the system that we're in now, is to really try to get into a coalition with a different definition, and also a very stringent rules and regulations that they got put together. And before doing that, I also mentioned even in last week that it's very important. I think Gambian people, I've seen too many people come out want to be president, but Every one of them is taking a small chunk of voters from different places, depending on where they come from and all of that stuff and who supports them. But without realizing that doing it that way, it's going to be very difficult for them to win and become president. So the best chance that we have, we've got to take the shot when the chance is available by really coming together. And number one, do a presidential debate. When you do a presidential debate and have all of these political party leaders come out, if we have a very good host, and of course they do the homework, everything has to be planned first to make sure that they have the appropriate questions from different sets of people, or from throughout the country. In other words, to try to get a good amount of questions that will be asked to each one of these individual party leaders, and get it televised. Of course, announce it ahead of time, 6 months ahead of time or so. Let the whole Gambia watch who these people are and what are they going to do without looking at paper. Because this is not the time for anybody to sit down and try to read from a book or anything like that. It's the time to show what your capabilities are, what your plan is for the country. What are you going to do when you become president? Because if they ask these questions for each and every one of them and allow each and every one of them to answer the same question or to comment on the same question, what they're going to do, I think it's going to put Gambians into a better place, give them a better perspective of who fits better. Who do we think is the best candidate here? And after that, in fact, during that presidential debate, I can guarantee you some of these political parties leaders that are coming up now and coming up to be president, yes, they have every right to stand for presidency, but some of them will actually drop out. They are not going to stand in front of a stage and a podium and want to be questioned about so many things, a variety of things about a country, to be able to answer. I don't think some of them are prepared for that. So some will eventually use the process of elimination, will take them out, and then you will have the few individuals that will stand out there, will allow Gambians to really determine who is the best fit without thinking about party affiliations. Who is the best fit for our country? Then they go into primaries. Once they go into the primaries, well, whoever they elect to be the flag bearer will go against President Barrow. At that point, it will be all the political parties together fighting against or going through elections against Barrow. I think that will give them a better chance, and then each party being on their own. Some will get a 1%, some will get 10%, some will get 5%. I mean, if they converge and become one party, and not one party, but to one coalition party or coalition group, I think they can take out the president. I think it's, in my opinion, that will be the easiest way to take him out.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep.
I think the last coalition taught us a lot of lesson, and perhaps it might be very difficult, Nyang, to form another one. Do you think there's a way for a coalition of SFR, UDP, and Halifa Salah's Doi coming again? Do you think there's a chance of that?
Well, there are different roads to get to Rome, and there are different ways of forming a coalition. And at the end of the day, we want an equitable and transparent process to get a candidate out of this coalition. But traditionally, the political parties will think of equity. What am I bringing to the table? What's my weight? So based on that, that's the amount of influence they want to have in the process. And that may not get us the best candidate, but it may give us the strongest candidate based on political backing. So it depends on what kind of process do they want to employ to get to run up to finding a candidate that will be a consensus and a compromise candidate that will be ideal for the average Gambian electorate. So we'll see what they're going to do, but we are just participants and they're the actors, and I do hope they will act in the best interest of the greater good of society.
So that is that process itself is what you were mentioning, how to get there. Let's say UDP, they have the numbers, and would they be able to provide us the best candidate? That is debatable based on their policies, the way they operate. Right now, you know, there's a power struggle in UDP. Of course, we recently saw Talib's people, and of course, Yankuba came spoke about what the Talib camps were doing to hijack the system, and now Hussein came. So it looks like technically there's no consensus there. Whoever they pick perhaps will not be. There's still some people want it different. So that we are dealing with that. So now, if we go by the size of the party to determine who becomes the coalition leader, we can still have a problem, even if we have a coalition. Because if they decided to pick somebody based on their internal agreement, would that person be like, come back to the point? Would that be a former candidate? Now, if we go to, like, let's say Isafal, who don't have the numbers like one could say, Asa might have a chance or might not. Again, the other coalition partners could say, well, since our candidates are not picked, perhaps they can look another way. So in this sense, do you think, even because we are a couple of months from perhaps a year from the election, do you still think, you are on the ground, do you still think there's a chance of repeat of 2026, or is that as far-fetched?
Well, a day in politics is a long time. And right now there is political jockeying going on, and everyone is playing tough. So I can understand what's going on. I mean, no one wants to just make it easy because it's leverage. Everyone is leveraging right now. And there's still time. And I think we have the luxury of hindsight as it relates to NAP and Coalition 2016. And if we learn lessons from these two, I think we can come up with a formidable coalition this time around, considering that we have two past coalitions and we have seen how they ended up. So hindsight has given us the opportunity to do it better this time around. But I still believe, like I said, a day in politics is a long time, and none of these parties or would-be candidates will just want to make the formation of a coalition easy, because everyone is trying to position and leverage their influence. So once desperation time hits in, that's when the real political talk will begin. But for now, I don't see anything serious coming out. But the necessity of our times will ensure that we have a viable coalition going forward to address the needs of the disenchanted Gambians, who I believe are the overwhelming majority of this country or population.
Perfect. So that brings us to the one final area that we want to touch before we end the show, which is the Constitution. The Constitution was tabled twice, rejected by the National Assembly, and this is the bread and butter for Gambia. This is the key to our sovereignty. This is everything. If we have a strong constitution that is supported and implemented, I'm pretty sure our government system will be at least close to an ideal one. Now, we've invited some people here on this platform who thought that 2000 constitution was better, who thought that 2024 constitution was better, which is called Barba's constitution. And now we have this term limit in limbo. And some Gambians are threatening to take it upon themselves on the streets if Barrow is going to contest for the second time or for the third time. But all these things going on, what is your take about this Gambian constitution? Do you think we will even have a constitution again? Or do you think we might have something, like somebody stated here, that perhaps before the end of the year we might have a constitution brought back. What is your take of Gambian constitution at this point, and what is your take of the mandate of two-term mandate, President Barrow passing that, the repercussion of that?
Well, technically, if I'm looking at the legislative process and
Yeah.
the way to going to a referendum, and I look at the time frame, it is very tight, near to impossible, to have a new constitution. Notwithstanding, we can use the framework of the 1997 constitution and try and do amendments, but maybe that way will be a shorter way rather than going through the process of starting all over again, considering the time frame left. And it's in Barrow's advantage. And I think it was a smart calculation, deliberate, if you ask me. Basically, there was a time they were interested in pushing and promoting the Constitution, but there was also a time it was a moot point. So they were playing with time, and that was prior to the 2021 elections. Now, they also want to play a time if they happen to have a constitution that talks about term limits. His argument is law is not retroactive, so that will apply for future elections, but not this current elections. But there is a moral issue and a legal issue. On the moral issue, he should know better, number one. Number two, he told us what his position was with regards to term limits. So if he happens to have a U-turn, that says a lot about his morality. That says a lot about the person he is. And it also shows the Gambian that his personal interest is greater than that of the greater good. I don't think any leader who puts himself first is a leader who should be the leader of men and women in a country that's trying to get out of a mess they found themselves in. So in a nutshell, he has shown us who he is, and it's up to us to accept him for who he is and do the needful by being proactive citizens of this country. The choice is ours. He has made his point and he has given his position. So now it's up to Gambian to see what's good for them. And I think if you look at our current predicament as average Gambians and how we live in our households, we need not let anyone sensitize, incite, or even tell us what to do. We should know what the needful is.
So do you mean that okay, that needful or President Barrow, what he chose to do, we know him and what he's actually how he took the U-turn. Yeah, that shows and define him. But now, do you think we should bring back 1997 constitution and amend the key areas that is needed if there's no time? Do
Well,
you think that's allowed?
some of the areas can be amended, especially as it relates to the IEC and others. I don't know about because putting a term limit, it's not there. So you're not amending what's not there, you're adding. I don't know what the Constitution calls for when we want to add the issue of term limits. Should we take it to a referendum or can it just be an act of parliament? I'm not too au fait with that. But for me, that's the structural issue we need to address. Electoral reforms, there's quite a lot of reforms we need to do in the country. So if we're using the 1997, we can work on it and see how best we can have a customized constitution just to address this coming election and thereafter, because Gambia needs to usher a third republic. And the third republic should be the beginning and the closure of the awful 20 odd years of Drammeh rule we had. So I will not want the 1997 constitution to be our constitution in the medium to long term, but I will want it to be the bridge for us getting to the third republic, thereby ushering a new constitution post-elections.
Right. I think that idea is a great idea, and perhaps the lawmakers and of course the political stakeholders should be looking at this at least to get us the key areas, especially the time limit, like you said. Make it maybe perhaps a referendum kind of thing and get those key areas there and other key areas and then work on the main constitution later on, perhaps when Barrow is defeated
Yeah.
2026 or when something else happens. Sam, your take on the constitution before Young wrap it up.
Yep. Well, thanks, Nyang, for definitely for all of these. But yeah, I am on his side as well. I showed my disappointment in back in the days when the borough first came to power with the National Assembly members that we had. I suggested that was a great opportunity while you have the coalition government to go ahead and amend all the laws that needed to be amended without a referendum. There is, you see, the law is divided into different sections. There are entrenched laws that are entrenched clause that cannot be changed without a referendum, and there are laws that are not entrenched. So the ones that are not entrenched, for example, the age limit, when they first came to power, you remember they had to change the age limit to be able to appoint Fatma Jallo Tambajang as the vice president, right? We all remember that. That was done
Yeah.
without a referendum. They had that power to do that. They have the power in those days also to change a lot of these things out there. If they had done that, today we would have been in a much better place. And at that time, that was the time that everybody was singing the song of changing and having two-term limits, including President Barrow. I think I will say this with a word of caution. I think I haven't verified this, but I think that term limit could be added to the Constitution, could be added without a referendum. If they can take the age limit out, they should be able to do a term limit in there without a referendum. However, there are certain things that impact the whole country that are, like I said, that are entrenched, and those will have to go through referendum. So if they had done that during that time, well, in 2020, when they went around to do what is it called, Constitutional Review Commission with a lot of people in different areas, I think we would have had a much better constitution to work with, a shorter version of what needs to be changed, and they could have passed that law at that point. But I totally agree with Nyang on what he said about the legality and the morality of the term limit when it comes to the president, because before going there, we all know 3 years was the agreement with the MOU from the coalition group, and he went in with the intention of staying with whether intention or not, but he went in with the agreement that he's going to serve 3 years, and while in office, changed his mind to serve the 5 years. And the 5 years, he called it as a mandate, which is true. It's in the Constitution. There's a mandate of 5 years for any president. But in my word, and in those days, what I said, I'll say the same thing now. If the coalition agreement was 3 years, you chose to take the mandate. Well, there's only one word for that. It's mandate. You're serving 5 years as a mandate. So if you serve 5 years as a mandate, at the end of that 5 years, now that should count as a mandate because it is a mandate, right? And
It is a
because
mandate.
exactly, you can't eat your cake and have it. You can't say, well, I came in with 3 years, I have to serve 5 years, but now I want that 5 years back. You can't eat your cake and have it. So to me, that's a morality issue, like Nyang said. That would have been somebody else would have said, you know what? I chose to take the 5-year mandate. I will count that as term one, and then run for a second term. If I win, I will serve the second time and get out. That's it. That's the way it should be. But unfortunately, we are between a morality and a legal issue here. But totally agree with Yang on that. But that's all I wanted to add to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then if you wanna select a key point in the 1997 Constitution, perhaps what need to be changed temporarily as a bridge. Beside the time limit, what other areas would that be?
I think strengthening the Electoral Commission is very important, and the manner in which the commissioner of the IEC is chosen, because you cannot be a player and a referee. A player in the sense that the president is running for office. He handpicks who he wants to be the referee of the game that he's going to be a player in. We need to look at that and see whether we will leave that to the parliament rather to choose rather than the
Okay.
president choosing. And it's very important and it's very key. I'll give you a simple example. There's a guy who is currently under investigation, Joe Colley. He is now the chair of the IEC. Now, do you think someone who is under investigation and the outcome of the investigation lies on what the executive wants, considering how the institutional arrangement is in the Gambia? Do you think that person will do anything that will make the executive make the executive feel infuriated? I don't think so. So there are ethical issues there, and I think we need to ensure that the way the chair of the IEC comes in, the players don't have nothing to do with it because the referee cannot be chosen. If I'm going to play a match against Manchester United, I can tell FIFA who I want the referee to be.
Yeah. So
Totally
that
agree.
is,
And that's
yeah,
why in
that's
my comprehensive civil service reform, I suggested that IEC chairman, the ombudsman, and the inspector general of police should all go through elections, should be elected by the people. And given a term limit there, when they're elected by the people, if they perform well after the first term, they may be lucky to be reelected. If not, people will elect another person. You know,
right.
Just
I
like
look at it
sheriffs
as
and
fair.
just like how sheriffs are elected.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's how I propose it. You know, and I think
And
we'll take away the question. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That being said, oftentimes we or yourself, Sam and I and others who are technocrats, uh, who who are who have potentials, shy ourselves away from politics, and then that create vacancy for you know known for clueless guys like clueless presidents, I would say, yeah, to take the vacuum space. What is your message to intellects or people who are in the position to really do a better job, who are not stepping up on the political space?
Well, I don't blame them. And I'm talking from experience living in the Gambia. It's difficult to help a group of people that don't want to help themselves. The Gambian predicament is as a result of our laissez faire attitude towards nation building. There are a lot of, you know, people in the Gambian intelligentsia who will love to come and partake. But do they have the buy in of the Gambians? Is that what the average Gambian wants? I think the answer is no. The average Gambian doesn't want the right people to come in. They want transactional people. So this is where we have a problem. There's a disconnect between what we're going through and the people with the right skill set to fix it relative to the people who should impact who takes charge.
So how could that disconnect be built or
One, it
rebuilt?
has to do with poverty. Two, it has to do with culture. And thirdly, it has to do with the trauma of dictatorship. So the Gambian problem is very complex. And to get out of the Gambian problem, there's a lot to be done. See, the issue of tribalism, I don't see it as a very serious issue in this country, but it has been instrumentalized by people who wanted to drive a wedge between a common group of people called Gambians. Our presidents never tried to build a nationality. They always wanted to build a feudal environment where natives and primitives lock horns against each other. It works well for their self perpetuating aspirations. And up to now, that's the Gambia we find ourselves. Because I always tell people we need to distinguish between ignorance, prejudice, and tribalism. There's a lot of ignorance in Gambia. There is a lot of prejudice that result into tribal stereotypes. But to be tribalist, one has to have power. For instance, today, if I wanted a job at the prisons department. The director of prisons hates, 'cause I don't even know what I am, a Wolof, a Mandi, a Pula, or a Serial. I am all of these three. But let's take Wolof, for example. He hates Wolofs. And I go there for an interview, and he happens to use the power of his office to deny me job based on my tribal affiliation. Then that is tribalist. But if someone opens their mouth and said insightful things, that is prejudice bordering to ignorance. And in the Gambia, what I see is as a result of how our ex-governments cultivate that fear, that mistrust, and that hatred. I won't even call it hatred, but prejudice amongst our tribes to ensure that social cohesion is not brought around. And this goes beyond Yaya Jammeh. It goes beyond Jawara. I will start with P.S. Njie, a grandfather of mine. His party was focused more on urban Gambians, Banjulians, predominantly Wolofs, and also, that's what he catered for. You look at Gaba Jahumpa, Gambia Muslim Congress. You look at JC5, the Catholics. You look at Dawda Jawara, the protectorate people. So our political environment and our political structures have always geared towards using a divide and conquer arrangement to preserve their power base. And that's why I said that 2017 was a disruptive period for the Gambia. And unfortunately, we have missed that boat. And I still do hope that the next incoming president will not be a term of continuity, but a term of reform and disruption.
Very good. And finally, before you give a final word,
Yeah,
one
let's
thing
come
that
to an end.
one thing that is bothering many folks who are abroad, and who are working towards nation building is this role of dual citizenship, of taking a position of a higher office. What is your take on that? Because I've seen that Ali Fasala once mentioned National Assembly that
I can hear you properly. You were breaking.
one issue that is taking a toll for people who are contributing towards nation building is the dual citizenship. Some people have to give their dual citizenship to run for certain office. And we have seen some ministers in Barrow's cabinet resign because as a result of that. And some folks had to give their citizenship
Well,
in
I
order to run
see.
for.
Well, I see the issue of citizenship as a moral hazard. The moral hazard is any Gambian who has acquired U.S. citizenship, you have taken a pledge of allegiance, and that pledge is as good as a promise. You give allegiance to the Star, Stripes, and Banner, which is fine. It's a choice if that's what you want. But you cannot want to rule a country when you have allegiance to another country. I'll give you a classic example. What's happening in the US Senate vis-a-vis Israel. So it may not really impact Gambia now, but when you make laws, you don't make them for today, you make them for posterity. So I have an issue with that, and respectfully, it has nothing to do with boxing out the diaspora, but you cannot be faithful to two countries. And if you really are interested and serious about your country, you will make the necessary sacrifice. But I know why also a lot of people are not making the necessary sacrifice, because country is not ready for their sacrifice. So a lot of Gambians are caught up between a rock and a hard place, and it's not their fault, but the people they want to salvage the misery that they find those people in.
Right, but what about this notion that Ali Fasala brought to the parliament that if you're running for president, don't give up your citizenship until you are. I mean, don't give it up. You can run for president or you can run for any other office, and then give it up when you
I'm
are
hearing.
about to be sworn.
I totally disagree. Principle matters more than form. Basically, he is right on the form, so it's like a bet, a gamble. But if you believe in your country and you believe in what you're doing, I think you should give the country the ultimate sacrifice. But a lot of people can't do that because the very people they want to help are not ready for what they want to help them with. So for me, I would just say that anyone who wants to run for office, you have to relinquish, or you cannot be part of the race. Period. This is not a betting game whereby you have chances, you keep
then
it.
then then
You
then,
don't keep it.
then,
If
then
you
in
don't have
that case then
chances,
in that case then in that case you are boxing out many potential candidates who have the heart and soul for
oh
Gambia.
no, 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 no
And
one is being boxed out. You make a choice. Look, you have to make a choice. Let's be fair to Gambia also. I mean, that's being a convenient apologist, and I'm not. I mean, honestly, I have no qualms with the diaspora because I was once a diasporan. But this is serious matters of nation building. I don't want my leader to have allegiance to any other country. So why would I allow you to take a bet and if you lose, you go back? Where's your commitment? If you believe in what you're doing, go all the way. But I also know why many of them can't go all the way because the very people in the ground here, on the ground, sorry, in the Gambia, are not ready for the sacrifices those people want to make. So it's a catch 22. But notwithstanding, anyone who wants to run for office here, you should do the ultimate.
Is he frozen? Mr. Sawaneh, are you there? Yeah, his screen is
Looks like
frozen.
he's frozen.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
we've come to an end. We've come to the end of an hour now, a little bit over an hour. But
Yeah.
I think it's about time to wrap this up, and so we can all go about our business for the rest of the day. It's Sunday, or he's already dropped.
Yeah.
So, but Nyang, thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate you, and it's a pleasure to have you on the stage again. And I'm sure we will touch
Pleasure's
base
all
at some
mine.
point. Yeah, 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 definitely. So
All
thank you
right.
so much for everything. Keep
All
up the
right.
good
Thanks a
work that
lot.
you're doing there. Okay, thank you. Keep up the good work. All right.
We'll keep on keeping on. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. You take it easy. All right.
All right. Bye bye. Boy, you ain't lying. There's mosquitoes here.